Prisoner transport is the weakest link in our inmate chain of custody. Hi, I'm Gary York, True Prison Stories. Please subscribe if you like this video. Yes, prison transport to court, from jail to prison, or from prison back to jail, or medical transports, or outside eye doctor transports, outside dental transports, all of them place us in jeopardy. And that is why we must have good training for our officers in inmate transportation or prisoner transport. And I believe that we need some scenario-based training. Scenario-based training has always been the best way to train, in my opinion. There's a saying by Benjamin Franklin that fits this just perfect. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I learn. And that was from Benjamin Franklin. Now, I'm one of these guys that came up in my career that you could tell me something and I tried my best to remember, but I would forget sometimes. Some people just have a memory, they can remember everything and it works great for them. And then you teach me in a classroom, that's fine. It's like going to college, you know, I can study for the test and I can pass the test, but have I actually performed those standards? You know, so books are one thing, but when you actually get out there and do things hands-on, tangible training, real world training for corrections is the best way to go. I always learn best that way. I may have understood something 60-70% and thinking I'm just not sure of myself, and then go down to the training center and we actually did something hands-on, and I did it once and I did it again and again, and I said, hey, I got this is okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Well, it's the same thing with anything, you know, retention training or reactionary training, all those things. Just like shooting your firearm, the more you shoot your firearm and train with your firearm, the more proficient you become. The more you learn how to take your firearm out of your holster, the better and more proficient you come in case you're on an inmate transport and you are approached by a family member holding a gun. Yes, it's happened. Happened all across the country on several occasions. There's stories out there. There's one here in Florida that happened back in 1987 that sticks in my mind, but there's more than that up to recent times. The officer was on inmate transport outside medical, and he was approached at gunpoint, and when they got to their medical destination, and he was shot and killed. There's been other officers on transport, prisoner transport, for outside medical, and they have been held at gunpoint, and some have been fortunate enough to be able to go back home at night, and some have not. So you have to take prisoner transport very seriously. Number one, who is going to be responsible when something happens to you? There must be a thorough investigation. Anyone involved handling the documents, such as classification, control room, any officers, any medical employees at the medical office who set the appointment for the inmate, they all need to be investigated when something goes wrong, when inmate transport goes wrong. Somebody leaked information. Somebody let the inmate figure out what time and date and exactly where he or she was going, and word got out to family members, gang members, or friends. It's very dangerous, and we must have top security when taking inmates out on transport. You know, we had an officer who did everything correctly one time. He brought the van in to the Sally Port. He inspected the inside of the van. He inspected underneath with a mirror. He checked his fuel. He did a radio check. He made sure everything was fine and that the van was clear. The inmate was brought up to the Sally Port, and the officer said, "Hey, Inmate's already been searched. You're good to go. All you got to do is put the restraints on him. Well, the officer, knowing that he is solely responsible for this inmate, did not take the word of the other officers. And officers, don't you dare get upset when you say you've searched an inmate and I'm the transporting officer and I search him again. You're not the one going on the trip with this guy or girl. I'm going on the trip. I have to know that there's no weapons or contraband on that inmate. So I searched the inmate again, and I'm glad you did before you brought the inmate up. That's good. We're doing double check now. Okay, I'm checking the restraints to make sure there's no problems with them or any malfunctions with the restraints. And then we restrain the inmate, place the inmate in the van, place the safety belt on, and go. And this officer did this, and he went to an outside eye appointment to take an inmate, one officer to an outside eye appointment. And he called control and said, I'm headed to my predetermined destination, because we don't give the location over the radio. If you don't use the radio and say I'm 51 of my predetermined location, you can use your phone and call control. Say, I'm headed out now to that medical appointment. You know where I'm going. You know, keep it confidential. So the officer did that, did everything that he needed to do to be safe on this trip. The officer then goes to the eye appointment, and this particular eye doctor said all inmates have to be back behind the building, empty parking lot, and brought through the back door. I don't want any inmates seen coming into my private medical office through the front door where I have regular free world people, patients. Well, this has been going on for a while, so the officer did as they've been doing in the past. They drove to the back empty parking lot, and he gets out and he begins to take the restraints off the inmate, and boom, he's held at gunpoint. Luckily, in this case, they made him take the restraints off the inmate. The inmate's restraints were put on the officer. His weapon, his keys, and his radio were taken by the suspects. They put him in the transport vehicle, put the safety belt on him, left him in the seat, and off they go. So, we have a huge problem. Somebody leaked information. The inmate got a hold of somebody. He knew he was going to this location. He must have known about how they operate and go to that back parking lot, because that's where they were. Was it somebody in the eye doctor's office who tipped them off? Was it a inmate in classification that saw some paperwork on the classification officer's desk? Was it a big mouth officer? Excuse me for that. I'm just meaning some officer talking in front of the inmates and the inmates overheard? Or did this inmate have an officer who was his buddy and the officer told the inmate? You know, we have to have tight security in these situations. So, what do we need to do in this type of situation? Well, the officer tried to do everything the best he could to keep the transport safe. Number one, never allow medical personnel to dictate how we perform our security. If this eye doctor won't let us come in through a more secure area, a safer area, a non-isolated area, then let's go find another eye doctor. When you're transporting an inmate to a hospital, always try to be in a lit area. Try to use entrances with hospital security there. That's just more backup for you. Another radio, another handgun in some cases, because a lot of hospital security do carry weapons and some don't, but at least you have other people there to help you. More than likely you're in an area that has cameras, and things can be caught on camera that occur, but don't go to isolated areas, and don't allow medical professionals to dictate how we're going to do security. We will do security, and the medical professionals will do the medical part. That's the same with uncuffing an inmate. When the doctor orders the inmate to be uncuffed for a medical procedure, look at your policies and procedures that your agency prescribes. If you have a problem uncuffing one cuff, like lots of times doctors say, take one cuff off and you'll put the inmate on the bed frame with the other handcuff. Well, Look at your policies and procedures with your agency. And if you have a violent inmate, one that you're not comfortable with, and all inmates have to be viewed as possible escape risk, possibly violent. You know, if you're not comfortable, call your supervisor. Say, hey, the doc wants me to do this or the doc wants me to do that. I'm not comfortable with it. But get some authorization first and follow your policies and procedures. The hospital professionals are there for healthcare. They don't know about security. They're not there for security. Okay? So, prisoner transport is very serious. Now, in most cases, in many cases now, here in Florida, I've seen with the state and with the county, they're sending one officer on inmate transport. Staff shortage is huge. Huge. I know that. But I think that officer safety is even a bigger concern. Okay? So I think that there should always be 2 officers on an inmate transport, or maybe 1 officer in the transport vehicle and a chase vehicle behind is even better. But then again, the agency say, now you want a chase vehicle? Now you want me to give you another officer? I'm short-staffed. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough vehicles. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't know how it is in other states, but I've seen some vehicles in Florida that, pretty scary. And we need safe, good, reliable vehicles when transporting these inmates as well. So that's just an idea. And I want to tell you, there's hundreds and hundreds of real-life scenarios your training center can work on and actually train you to do these scenarios hands-on and go through the situations. Go through what you would do when approached by a person with a knife or a gun and telling you that they're going to take the inmate from you. You have to be cool-headed. You have to have great verbal skills if you need to talk your way out of that situation, because you may be caught off guard and you can't reach down and get your weapon. It's too late. So here's where cool head, good verbal skills come into play, and what to do next. And you need to role play these on prisoner transport scenarios at your institution during training or at your training center. Another thing you need to practice is inmates on a trip having a fake mental health, a fake medical emergency or a real medical emergency. And you're 10 miles from the next institution, 20 miles from the next hospital. Well, you're not going to stop on the side of the road. You got 10 other inmates in there with this inmate. Yes, you need to do something. Well, get on your phone, get on your radio, start calling your supervisors, calling the next institution, find the next county jail, find the next prison, and get in that sally port and tell them you have a medical emergency on the way. You know, there's all types of training scenarios, but you need to do it the way your agency sets it up in their policies and procedures. Don't get caught out in the middle of the highway in a trap for a fake medical emergency. I saw where an inmate was complaining on their YouTube about the officer didn't stop when the inmate was having a medical emergency. What kind of hateful, unthoughtful human being is this? Most of these people don't know our policies and procedures. Most of these people don't understand why we do what we do. It's not only protecting us, the transport officer, it's protecting the community, and it's protecting those other inmates that are in there. So work on those scenarios for court transports. Also work on searching inmates before and after transport. Work on scenarios on searching that transport vehicle before and after transports for contraband, damages to the transport vehicle. There's a ton of them, folks. And also do some training on transporting mental health inmates. That's a whole nother ball game right there, folks. Get your agency to start doing this. Let's don't just send you out there in a raggedy old van that you don't even know if you're going to make it to your destination. Let's start working on that for officer safety. Let's start doing these or implementing these scenario-based prisoner transport training. I think it is good for everyone. Sorry about staff shortage and administrative people and higher-ups in the legislature. You need to do something about that. But in the meantime, we need to make sure our officers are safe. Thank you very much. Gary York, True Prison Stories.